What's up, guys? Today I'm going over the Sojourner's Tail, which is a new slug shotgun this season from Umbral Engrams and the Override mission. And in this video, we will be breaking down if it's a good replacement for the first and last out, if you never got one, or if you do have the god roll first and last out, is this shotgun even better? So we will be going over the god roll for the weapon and also breaking down a few different DPS numbers. Before we get into that, a quick word from today's video sponsor. This video is sponsored by the Red Magic 6R, which is one of the most advanced gaming smartphones on the entire market. When it comes to gaming, this phone provides you some of the best specs in the world: a 144Hz monitor that has up to a 360Hz touch refresh rate that is being powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 888. And the Red Magic 6R can maintain this performance for a very long time due to the huge battery and also the extremely fast air-cooled fast charge. And you might think all this would overheat, but the phone has a built-in in-house liquid cooling system that will disperse the heat very quickly. Also, this is a full-on smartphone that comes with 5G capabilities, then 4 cameras on the back along with 1 front-facing camera. So this smartphone is the real deal. It's one of the best ones on the market for gaming and also is an all-around really good smartphone. If you want more information on the Red Magic 6R, you can go ahead and click the link in the comments description, which will take you over to their product page. Thanks to Red Magic for sponsoring this video. So beginning with the video, the god roll for the first and last owl is pretty known. Obviously, it's assault mag, auto-loading holster, then also vorpal weapon, which is not going to be a huge damage buff, but for specials and heavies, it's going to be very consistent at that 15%. But the thing about it is, if you did not get this weapon in Season of Arrivals, it's pretty hard to farm for it now. Pretty much now it's only in the rolled loot pool, which means you can farm it from the gunsmith and also from just turning in the base umbrals, but it's extremely hard to get one because there's all kinds of weapons in this pool, and even if you do get one, getting the right roll is near impossible. So that is where the Sojourner's Tail comes into play. You can get it from umbrals, but then you can also focus the umbrals into this one right here, which will give you a 50% chance of getting the weapon, so a lot more manageable to actually get in the right roll you want. And looking at the perks on the weapon, in the left 2 slots is pretty similar. You want assault mag and then auto-loading holster for PvE, but in the right slot there is no vorpal, but there's going to be 3 different damage perks that are going to be pretty interesting: Frenzy, Surrounded, and then also Adrenaline Junkie. So we first look at the first and last out with vorpal, just to set the baseline for the DPS. Looking at damage on Carl, 41,968. And vorpal will always be that 15% buff and be very consistent. And looking at the rate of fire, we'll use this one number for all the DPS in the video. And 6 shots took 4.139 seconds, which means the DPS with vorpal on the first and last out is just over 60,000, almost 61,000, which is obviously extremely good for special weapons. Slugs are extremely strong. And the closest thing to that roll for the tail would be Frenzy instead of vorpal. Frenzy is going to be the exact same 15% buff, but the thing is you have to be in combat for roughly 12 seconds, which means you have to be taking damage or doing damage to proc the perk in the first place. And the thing that really helps out Frenzy is the fact that you don't need the weapon out to proc it. You can just be doing anything with any weapon, and after 12 seconds you'll have the perk. So it's not that unrealistic to use on boss fights, and once again it'll be the exact same 15% buff that vorpal was. So the exact same 60,838 DPS. So that is more or less the exact same thing as the first and last out, but a little bit less consistent. This weapon also comes with Adrenaline Junkie, which will be the highest damage buff possible, but you need 3 grenade kills to proc the Adrenaline Junkie times 3. The good thing is the perk will last for 10 seconds, so once you get 3 grenade kills, that's that kind of like Rampage, it will be the highest buff, and you'll have that for a decent amount of time. You'll be able to shoot off maybe like 2 magazines. And that will result in a 33% buff, which is going to be 70,000 DPS. So depending on what you're doing, that could work, but that's going to be more so just a general play thing and not something you're going to be able to do versus most boss fights, unlike the final perk, which is Surrounded. And the thing about Surrounded is you need Surround Spec to really make it work, which means you lose something like Boss Spec or Major Spec. But the thing about this perk is it's not quite as high as Adrenaline Junkie at 33%, but instead it will be 30%, so not too much lower than that of Adrenaline Junkie, which means the DPS of Surrounded plus Surrounded Spec will be 68,722, so obviously a lot higher than that of the vorpal or Frenzy number. And one thing to note is the first and last out does have Surrounded on it also, but if you're like me and didn't keep one from back in Season of Arrivals, once again it's near impossible to get that roll once again. And back when the first and last out came out, I probably said Surrounded is the highest DPS, but it's not very consistent for most boss fights in the game, and that is pretty much true. But the thing is, now with Volglass being, the new pinnacle raid, the one that drops, the highest tier loot, and all the new weapons, the 2 boss fights in that raid are just set up for Surrounded, to be honest, and Surrounded would work really well in both the Templar and the Atheon fight. Depending on where you put down your well, bubble, or whatever it is to do your DPS, there should be enemies all around you to proc Surrounded for pretty much every single shot. So not only is Surrounded 15% higher than that of the Vorpal or Frenzy, I think it's actually very realistic to use in the situation where I find myself using slug shotguns the most, the 2 boss fights in the current raid. And then even in fights that you couldn't proc Surrounded, you still have the Frenzy roll, which is pretty much the exact same as first in last out with Vorpal, just the fact that you have to wait 12 seconds before the damage kicks in, which going up to the boss fight, there's usually ad clear or something like that before. So you should have Frenzy going into the boss fight for all those different situations also. So is it worth farming this shotgun out this season? Well, if you don't have a first and last out internal because you didn't play those seasons, well, just getting one of these with pretty much any assault mag, auto loading, then whatever perk on the right would be pretty much instantly better than whatever you're using already. Get it with Frenzy and it's pretty much the same thing as the first and last out God roll. But let's say you already have that God roll in the first and last out with Vorpal and it's super consistent. Well, is there a reason to farm out the tail with Surrounded? Well, I think yeah, because the current raid, the one that drops pinnacle loot, drops all the new cool weapons, I think both boss fights you could definitely take advantage of Surrounded for the entire fight and just have, you know, 15% straight up more damage. Obviously pair that with Anarchy, pair that with, you know, the Heritage in your connect slot. You can either hot swap or just swap between them and just take advantage of auto loading, and that will result in just a little bit higher DPS than that of the first and last out, and therefore be, you know, the most optimal DPS in the game. So yeah, this weapon is real deal. I still think there is a place for the first and last out. It's just gonna be super consistent overall, but I think in the right scenario the tail is a little bit better. And that's gonna be it for the video. Kept it on the short side. I've went over a lot of slug shotgun DPS numbers this season so far, including with Anarchy, hot swapping, just going back and forth between the 2 weapons. So I've shown off a lot of different numbers and I decided not to do them again because you can just go watch those videos if you want. But the tail slid into any of those situations would just be a little bit better. Anyways, just a little bit of strike gameplay left. Like usual, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.